It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for joining us this evening as my good friend, Mr. Andrew J. Van Beber, and I get to talking about the inauguration.
Wow. Welcome to the revolution, right?
Yes, I feel like we are kind of come full circle on from when
We first
this
started.
show had started, and now here we are.
4 years ago.
The Biden torch has officially been passed. It has been passed, and along the way, he kind of forgot what route he was walking, and Trump also tripped a couple times trying to get to it. But the torch has officially been passed. Inauguration day has come and went, and so before we kind of get into some of the nitty gritty, one of the funniest things of the day to me was, do you know who Theo Von is, comedian?
Yeah, right.
Podcaster?
Yep.
So Theo Von is kind of known for his just outlandish, back in third grade I knew this guy and he did this and this, back in high school I knew this. It's just always kind of super outlandish, always very funny. Well, today there's video footage of him at the inauguration. It's just middle of the inauguration. He is sitting in a chair and the chair breaks and he falls backwards into Logan Paul's lap. And if that's not a just conversation piece that, who's going to believe that? Who's going to believe I remember, at the last presidential inauguration, I fell into, a billionaire boxer, YouTube wrestler lap at the inauguration of the president, which again, star-studded event. Elon Musk was in his, whether he was hailing Hitler or just really excited to see people. That was also
I saw that. I was like, what is he Whoa.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it was definitely, I don't know, based off of kind of what we've seen, obviously the inauguration is a little bit different than campaigning and rallying, all that stuff, but I was kind of hoping for, maybe a little bit more fanfare. This one was inside just due to the temperature, which was also felt here in Missouri. I don't know about you, but today was a very nippy one, and tomorrow's supposed to be colder. I've been told that the school is on alert. It might not be a snow day, but it might be a too cold to have a school day.
I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, but I tell you what, this is what they call it. This is one of those El Nino years where the weather pattern is just really sporadic and more moisture and more downdraft from. My brother in Panama City Beach, they're under a winter storm watch. Panama City Beach, Florida, they're under a winter storm watch, and they're supposed to get anywhere from 3 to 5 inches of snow tomorrow in Panama City Beach, Florida. So that's how nuts it is. And this is, I believe this was the first time that something like this had happened ever, to do a inauguration inside. One might, I was just taking back a note in history, back when William Henry Harrison was inaugurated, it was raining and it was below, it was one of those cold rains. And this was back when they used to do the inauguration parade before the inauguration. Now it's reverse order. But Harrison refused to ride in the carriage, and he walked the entire parade route in the rain in just his top coat. And he gave
And then
he died. He died 31 days. He died 31 days later from pneumonia.
Like pneumonia or something.
Yeah, he died 31 days later from pneumonia because he wanted to be the president of the people. He was one of our 2 Whig presidents. And I'm gonna be out there with the people, shaking hands and walking in the rain, and it was. I'm sure it had all good intentions and everything, but yeah, but this time, I guess, someone
tried to kill him a couple weeks ago, so might as well not try to let him die of pneumonia.
Why? To me, I think people would have braved the cold anyway, and I don't know whose call that was. Sure. I'm just curious as to whose call that was to make to do that. So anyway,
I look at it as how many people had flights and hotels booked and all that jazz just to.
Well, they did open up Capital One Center, which I guess is where that's where the Washington Wizards play at, and that's like the big convention center there in D.C. And so they opened that for basically everybody who had tickets to the inauguration. They provided
to watch on a screen or something.
Well, they had the big jumbotron and everything like that, and I was watching a couple of feeds, and I saw one feed. I think it was from CNN where they were going back and forth between that, and and they ended up just having a full day rally out of it. I think, and because Trump went there to address them, and he signed his first of his executive orders there too. So. And then he signed the rest of them back at the White House. So, nice. Some of the things that you can. Well, before we even get to that, I want to talk about one thing before we get into what Trump said. What good old Joe did the last hours of his presidency, besides fall asleep at the inauguration address.
Are you talking about the family pardon?
Yeah, so Joe issued really not only for his family, but also and he's not the first to do this, but a number of preemptive pardons for basically anybody who were critics of President-elect, members of his own family, basically shielding people against retribution from Donald Trump if it happens. I was just scrolling down through here. One of them was Anthony Fauci, the
God, yeah.
Who was the I can't find it. The former vice president under Bush, Dick Cheney's daughter, who was on the January 6th committee.
Liz Cheney?
Liz Cheney, he issued one for her. He issued one for, here's the one for Fauci. But he basically said, this is a statement from Biden. He said, the issuance of these pardons should not be mistaken as an acknowledgement that any individual engaged in any wrongdoing, nor should acceptance be misconstrued as an admission of guilt for any offense. Our nation owes these public servants a debt of gratitude for their tireless commitment to our country. So, with these then you go down to all the pardons that he issued to his family. To his brothers, his sisters. I forgot who all. I can't find that, but I mean, other than his son and all this stuff and everything, I was just like, that's pretty extensive. And of course, everybody was criticizing Biden for doing that, and that when he once pledged that I'm not going to issue a pardon for my son, but now he just here you go, here you go. I mean, I get the whole thing of saying, okay, well, we're going to protect these people because they were good public servants and all that. But also, I don't know if these people are just that afraid of Donald Trump that he's going to But one of the executive orders that Donald Trump said that he was, the Justice Department wasn't going to be used for, he was going to depoliticize the Justice Department, not use it as a political weapon. So take what you want to from that. Whether that means he's going to, stand by that or not, it's really, I think it's really still up for interpretation.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So, So what stood out to you? Let's go ahead and get into the actual inauguration then. What stood out to you about the inauguration or some of the things that Trump said? We'll just go kind of through some of the list of the things that he said.
Yeah, from start to finish, I actually felt like it was a fairly good speech. I felt like I was kind of worried going into this one that there's going to be a little bit of off the rails kind of things.
Yeah,
I didn't want this inauguration to be an hour long conversation. But the
Listen
prompt
to
was,
me.
the prompter was right there.
How great we are, and
right.
how black that guy is over there, and let me tell you about how much of a Muslim Barack Hussein Obama is.
Yeah. No, I like legit. Like that was kind of my worry of how this, was going to go, and I felt like, I listened to the speech. It was anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes,
right?
From start to finish. Obviously, all the fanfare, but some of the things we had kind of talked about that stuck out. Some of the ones that I was just surprised were like addressed during this part. Was how the Gulf of Mexico will become the Gulf of America.
He's already signed the executive order for that, so that's already happened.
The Panama Canal being ran by China, and how we are going to take it back from China because it was not a gift for the Chinese.
Yeah.
One thing that I actually thought was interesting because watching it all, the only time that I noticed, and I might have just missed it, but the only time I noticed that Biden and Kamala clapped was when he made the announcement that we will be actively working on sending Americans to Mars.
Yeah. And that's also when what's his name, SpaceX boy was back there going.
Elon was, all very
that's
happy
when we thought he had his Hail Hitlers going on.
Giddy. Yeah, no, it was. But like I said, I was pleasantly surprised with just how it was kind of to the point. Again, I was very worried that was not going to be the case, and we were able to avoid that. So no, otherwise I thought it was good. The big things that I'm seeing on the internet, the big ones are, his comments on the government recognizing two genders, men and women. That's kind of the one that I'm seeing flurry the most online. But it'll be interesting. Like, again, we kind of talked about this last time. I'm interested to see how this is going to affect the relationship. So Missouri has a working relationship, the Missouri National Guard does, with Panama.
Mm-hmm.
We have full-time Missouri Army National Guardsmen in Panama. So I'm interested to see how this is going to affect that relationship, and what it's actually going to entail going forward. So for someone that is very, sorry, I keep yawning on you. Very right. Anti, hey, we're trying to end this war. I'm going to get us out of this war. We're going to stop this war. The terminology being used about, we are going to take the Panama Canal, we're going to get it back is, I don't know, it feels a little bit like an open threat. I did think that it was interesting to hear, I knew he would talk about potentially the oil, getting back to drilling. That did not surprise me.
That didn't surprise me at all.
But, I thought it was interesting. He did talk about how, we were going to be expanding. We were going to be a growing nation. He said, not just with people, but with territory as well. Mm-hmm. So I know there's been these talks about, the purchase of Greenland and this, that, or the other, annexing some of these other countries. So I'm interested to kind of see what that will entail and if that'll be something that changes in the next 4 years.
Well, I saw, so this is on X right now. Jose Molina, who is the president of Panama, he's basically reaffirming Panama's sovereignty over the canal, emphasizing the waterway will remain under Panamanian control and in accordance with the Torrijos-Carter Treaty signed in 1977, which gave the control. We had a 90. Let me just back up just a little bit about the history on that Panama Canal too. So when that was built, and that was kind of one of the stretches that Trump said, I caught that on the fly because I've taught the Panama Canal for years. And he said there were like 38,000 Americans who died in the building, and there was a little bit between 5,000 and 6,000 Americans who died. Total on the project altogether was somewhere between the French and American, because the French tried to build it first, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 12 to 15,000 people died in the construction of that. But anyway, Trump said that the quote was, "The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated." He said the waterway should have never been given away, and that American ships are being severely. His quote was, "American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly." And then he said China is operating the Panama Canal, and then so the actual, here's the actual quote from the Panamanian president. "I must fully reject the statements made by President Trump regarding the Panama and its canal in his inaugural address. I reiterate that what I said in my message to the nation on December 22nd, the canal is and will remain Panamanian." And then there's a picture here of the Panamanian residents outside the American embassy in Panama City, Panama, burning an American flag. So that is, I think that's, we knew that Trump was going to come in and he was going to really rattle a lot of feathers today. He signed a slew of, executive orders. But one of the other things that he mentioned before getting the executive orders, one of the things that he started out from the beginning, and he said that the golden age of America begins right now. We know that that Trump is full on, America first, and that's going to be his, that's going to be his agenda. That's going to be his thing. He said during every single day of the Trump administration, I will simply put America first. Okay. And to me, the balls that Trump had with Obama and with Biden right there in the room, how he just rails on both of them about the quote unquote decline that America went through. Another one of his, we're going to be flourish and be respected again around the world. Okay, to me, that's an implication that under the past administrations, we're no longer, and then like you said, one of the things that he went on was the whole, we're going to recognize only two genders, male and female. Now, as I do totally agree with that, and I totally, sorry I'm not sorry if I offend. It's just my belief that I also believe in that. But I also still believe in the rights of individuals under the 14th Amendment to do whatever the heck they want to do. If they want to say, hey, I'm this and I'm that, okay, great, you do that. But now Trump's going to say, okay, whatever it says on your license, that's what you are. Whatever you biologically are identified as, that's what you are. And, this is, in a talk of saying we're going to unite America back together. We are more diverse. And tell me if I'm wrong on this, please correct me, but I believe we're more diverse now than we have ever been as a country, as far as people, just the amount of nationalities that we have within our border now, the number of religions, the number of just different beliefs. We are, I may be wrong in saying this, but Trump is pulling this pipe dream of, well, and Joe did too, as far as that goes. But we all need to be united under one banner and blah 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 and all this other stuff and pushing for American nationalism. I think it's hard to push for a spirit of American nationalism when there is so much diversity on the American plate. We can't. I don't think it's easy for everybody to come together and unite under one flag. I may be. Am I totally off base by thinking that?
No, I'm pretty much in the same. You got to just look where we are as a nation. We're rather large. I think a lot of people forget that, especially like when we compare ourselves to places like Europe. Like geographically, we're just so much larger.
Mm-hmm.
And so you take that, and people from all different walks of life. I couldn't fathom what it's like, even when I lived in LA. Living in LA, in downtown West Hollywood, is still 10 times different than what it is to live in like downtown New York, right? Or walking around in Brooklyn or the Bronx, anything like that. It's a different world. And you compare that to where I live now. I bought a house in a town of 70 people. We are vastly different. I mean, as crazy it is to say, like the last time, our country had real unity was around 9/11. That was kind of I feel like the time
exactly.
where you turned on the radio and people and there's American themed songs that are being sung. I would say, we are an extremely diverse nation because of what America is. Send us your sick, your weak, your poor. The Statue of Liberty is there telling you, we are a
Send me your
nation
huddle
where,
masses. You're going to be free.
Yeah, but because of that, you know, there's always going to be the you versus me mentality and of a lot of these people, just because that's just that it is what it is. When things change, when things are new, people get uncomfortable, they get unfamiliar, and it's not that because people are necessarily inherently bad. It's just it's different. Like my life experience is can be vastly different from the person that lives down the street from me. And some people's worldview on the United States. And I mean, just look at just a couple weeks ago when that guy, murdered that healthcare CEO, and I felt like there was depending on what echo chamber you fell in,
right,
there was a large group of people saying that was a good thing.
That's terrible.
So and I think that's the other thing is with how we are today. So it's a little bit different. So I would go out on a limb and let's just say 30 years ago. 30 years ago.
That's safe.
Go back and you take a look at the echo chambers that people fell into. Right now we have you are able to access whatever you want at any given time. But beforehand, this is to kind of really, generalize it. But echo chambers were: are you a Fox guy? Are you a CNN guy?
Right.
Are you a Larry King guy, or are you a Jay Leno guy?
Mm-hmm.
That is how people consumed media. You would literally get a newspaper, so you would be reading about what happened the day before, whereas now we have access to everything within seconds of it happening. And so things just felt, when things were big, they felt bigger. There was, like, I'll even admit, like, now obviously now there's more viewership, but this is just my opinion, but the Super Bowls, right? This is, again, such a little thing. I feel like when I was younger, okay, in the 90s and the early 2000s, even mid 2000s, the Super Bowls just, they felt bigger. They felt bigger than they do now because there's so much other stuff going on. But back then it was just like, no, it was an event. It was everybody everybody, the world tuned in. Yeah, it's obviously still big now, and I'm sure they'll say, "Oh, the numbers are bigger than they ever were," but it just doesn't feel like it. And I could say the same thing for a lot of other things. There's just so much content, so much fluff for us to consume. And when people go into their own echo chambers, like, again, it's not a bad thing, but like, let's say you really like this one thing, that one thing is going to potentially consume your life because your algorithm, everything that you get yourself involved with, is just, that's what it's going to show you. And yeah, it just kind of feels a little bit like that.
Another phenomenon that's really, you mentioned at the top of the broadcast how this is basically marking our 4th year we're in our 4th season of the podcast. But think about something else that's happened you talk about echo chambers, but in the last, so this phenomena of podcasting, podcasting has taken on, if two schmucks like us can do a podcast, anybody can do a podcast, And so,
oh yeah,
and you look at, we talked last week about, the claims that were made about the shooters at the New Year's Eve thing, and what was made, I forgot which podcast that was. That was the guy that Ryan, the podcast that Travis usually watches and we usually get clips from and stuff like that.
Oh, is that Sean Ryan?
Sean Ryan, yeah.
Is his name?
So, yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of different, there's things like that we, there's a lot more, the landscape has changed. I've done this a lot on this show, is just to say what it looked like when I taught 27 years ago as a rookie teacher in 1997 compared to where we're at now. Man, to say, when 9/11 happened, it was turn the TV on and then, that's what you had was either, like you said, CNN and Fox Fox News was still in its infancy, and it was, yeah. So it depends, it's gonna, I'm glad that Trump made this initial statement of saying, okay, we're going to protect any kind of censorship and free speech. Okay. I want you to stand by that. And continue to if people are going to criticize you, if you're going to have, you can't have it both ways. You can't next week start saying you're fake news and okay, you've got to let CNN do their thing. You've got to let NPR do their thing. You've got to let Fox do their thing, and, when I also looked at it, I saw, Tucker Carlson was at I don't know if you saw him in any of the shots or anything, but Tucker Carlson was there,
yep.
And, when you have him there and then you've got Elon Musk there, the guy who owns X, and I guess.
And Zuckerberg was there.
No, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg was there too, and I think that Mark Zuckerberg was probably kissing the proverbial, Trump booty to say, I'm on board. Maybe I did go a little bit overboard during the COVID crisis and start, instead of just saying, hey, speak your mind, what you think, because people are going to, like you said, find their echo chamber and dwell there, But some of the other things that Trump addressed, which has a lot of people, I want to read this quote. And Trump had claimed, one of the things that he had claimed was that the U.S. isn't or can't respond to climate emergencies. This was the quote he said. He said, "We have a government that has been given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders, or more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in times of emergency. As recently shown by the wonderful people of North Carolina, been treated so badly in other states who are still suffering from the hurricane that took place many months ago, or more recently in Los Angeles, where we are fighting fires still tragically burned from weeks ago without even a token of defense. They're raging through the houses and communities, even affecting some of the wealthiest and most powerful individuals in our country, some of whom are sitting here right now. They don't have any home any longer. that's interesting. We can't let this happen. So when Trump's saying, that there wasn't any response to, or the lack of response to North Carolina, when you look back on that Biden said, called them, what do you need? Here you go. And then, there were the claims that, well, they're rationing water and that's why they can't get the fires put out in LA. Well, they can't find a way, from what I understand, they can't find a way to pump the water in LA to get enough of it. And that's why you're seeing all these. And by the way, I've been watching, my latest crack addiction is watching all of these, just the videos of these planes going into the reservoirs and everything out by Los Angeles and going out in the ocean and just getting big things of water and just going. That's amazing. So, one of the other things that he mentioned, I had another quote that I had saved here that he had talked about. There's the pin. So he was going. We're going to drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill, baby, drill, baby, drill. One of the things that he said was going to help lower cost, and he actually signed an executive order that said, hey, every agency, I want you to do whatever you can to find solutions to help start lowering inflation rates. And one of the things that he said, we're going to do this drilling. We're going to pull off the restrictions that are put on these oil companies. He also said that we were, the tariff thing. So the tariff is, he wants to do something about, the tariff and pass the savings on to American people, which I have said over and over and over again. That is, if you're buying into that, that is a total falsehood. The American consumers, folks, listen to me, please, 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 please. I can't emphasize this enough. When it comes to tariffs, the other countries don't pay it. We, as the consumers, those countries, those foreign companies, pass that on to you in the and so if you still want your product from X or Y, and those X or Y comes through Canada or comes through Mexico, you're going to pay a higher price for it. And just be aware of that. That to me is just one of those dangling things that drive me nuts in that. But other than, like you said, I was really excited. I am a big space guy. I was born at the tail end of, the hype of going to the moon. 1974 was Apollo. They scrapped Apollo 16. So Apollo 16 was supposed to launch, or 15 or 16 was supposed to launch the year that I was born, and they scrubbed it because how many times can you go around the moon? How many times can you land on the moon and it still be, I would love, one of my top 10 movies is The Martian with the guy from Born. Why is his name skipping me right now? From the
Brad, are you talking about Matt Damon?
Yeah, Matt Damon, who did just a great job. And I mean, to me, that's when I watch that movie, and I'm just I just wonder how far off of science fiction we actually are with creating spacecraft like that can go that distance and do that kind of stuff. But I'm excited. I would love to see, I would be the first one. I'd be glued to the set whenever, the Mars landing. Mm-hmm. That would be phenomenal. So, so the last part of the show here, I just want to talk about some of these executive orders that we are recording this on the day of the inauguration, even though it's being broadcast on Thursday. Let me just bring up some of this is on Newsweek.com. The executive orders that he has, the rescission of 78 Biden-era executive orders, regulatory freeze, preventing bureaucrats from issuing any more regulations until we have full control in the government, a freeze on all federal hiring except in the military, a requirement that federal workers return to full-time in-person work which basically is saying no more working from home, which that kind of frightens my wife a little bit because she deals in stuff that deals with federal money. So directing agencies to address Americans' cost of living crisis, withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, the Paris Climate Agreement, which he did. Shouldn't be a surprise because he did that that was signed in 2015, and when Trump came in office, we pulled out of it. Biden put us back into it. Trump pulled us back out of it, which is the beauty of an executive order. You can pretty much just rescind anything that the guy before you did. A directive to the federal government ordering the restoration of freedom of speech, and we talked about in preventing government censorship of free speech going forward. A directive to the federal government ending the weaponization of government against the political adversaries of the previous administration. The big one. Now, this is the big one, which I want to spend a little bit of time on. Trump signed, and this is within the last 30 minutes, Trump has signed a pardon of more than 1,500 people convicted in connection with the January 6th Capitol riot. Among those is the head of the Proud Boys, and I don't have his name right in front of me, but they're saying within 24 hours he's going to be released from jail, and that really, Nancy Pelosi took to X just a few minutes ago, and she said it was a slap in the face to American police officers and people at the Capitol who defended. So basically, everybody who, I guess the shaman cult or the shaman chief whoever it was took a dump on Nancy Pelosi's desk, to everybody who charged through the front doors. Hey, thanks for coming. The head of the Proud Boys, just to clarify, he isn't. There's a difference between a pardon and a commutation. He got his sentence commuted. He had the most extreme of all he had a 22-year prison term, and his sentence got commuted. Credit for time. His record isn't going to be expunged. He's still a convicted felon.
Yeah.
Where have we heard that before? But he's still a convicted felon, and he's not going to be able to, he's still, the regulations that are put against him by the federal government for being a felon still out there. I mean, is this, man, I go back to how Biden did all of his pardons, but are we talking about the same things, the Biden pardons versus pardoning the January 6th guys? I mean, is that even remotely equal, or do you think that's, should that something, hey, you guys, because, aren't we given the green light then that if the government pisses you off enough, you get to take the streets and storm the Capitol? Is that the precedent we're setting? I don't know.
In a sense, yes. In a sense. Yeah. Now, obviously, there definitely, as more and more information came out about the insurrection, there were definitely some individuals, yes, that deserved everything and then some that they received. However, there were other individuals that had nothing to do with being inside the Capitol, being around, were there for the march, that are doing prison time, that lost their jobs. So it's one of those tough things where, if you're gonna throw a blanket over the fire, like, understand, you might be saving a turd underneath that fire. So that was kind of one of my thoughts on the situation, is that I definitely think there were some people that were treated unjustly.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of podcasts that I've listened to about it, but I'm with you. There's definitely what happened was wrong, and
right. And
those that were punished, rightfully so. Like, there are some instances where you need to set a precedent. Like, people are like, oh, it's unfair. They really didn't do anything. It's like, no. You don't understand. You have to make a point of emphasis on those kinds of things, so that way people don't do it. That's why I'm like, there's certain crimes, where I believe we should be, what people might consider fair or not fair. We should be harsher so that those things stop reoccurring. Because if we truly crack down, like, this might be a little off topic, but in the case of, first degree murder, the fact that people have the opportunity to get out after in some cases a decade, 2 decades. No,
Right.
like you decide that that's something you want to do, you go to prison for life. Henry Ruggs is about to get out of prison after 3 years, and he killed a woman. He killed a
Yes.
woman.
Yep.
Regardless of whether it was an accident, he was intoxicated, drunk driving, and murdered a woman. And just a couple of years, like realistically, that feels like a slap on the wrist.
There
Because
was
you take other individuals that are young, learning through, like they're not likely thinking in that moment of time, I'll probably just worst case scenario, I'll go to 3 years if I kill someone.
well, yeah, it depends on
But
who's
still,
in the
that's the
White House,
precedent
right?
that's being set. So, but again, I know that was a little off topic, but circling
No.
back to this, it's you have to set a precedent. You have to go, no, you fucked up. You were one of the first people to fuck up, and we are
Right.
going to make a point of emphasis to show that you are the example of, if you want to do this kind of shit, you want to do this, this is what happens. Now, again, I think that because of that, there were certain individuals that didn't have anything to do with anything, and they, like, individuals that just went on their little stroll on the inside of the Capitol, they still deserve to be punished, because absolutely, what are you doing?
You breaking
Like,
and enter, yeah.
you break it and enter, and I don't care if you were the first one in the door, absolutely you deserve to be punished. I still am on the side of, I think Ashley Babbitt was a fucking idiot. Okay.
Yeah, getting shot in the
I
face,
am
yeah.
not on the she was some innocent. Yeah, no. She knew exactly what she was doing,
Yeah.
exactly where she was going, what she was trying to do. She was posing a threat. So the whole that she was just some innocent bystander that was murdered and for no reason
No,
is also wrong.
she was coming through that window. She was coming through that window.
Yeah. So
I
I think that there's definitely precedents need to be set. But I'm glad that for some people it might help out the situation in which they found themselves, but for others, no. Like you do the crime, you should do the time.
I think this circles back around to, Sean, what you said earlier about, I loved your term echo chambers, but what base of morality are we going to, when Trump says we're going to enter into a golden age and we're going to get things back right, okay, right by whose standards? Biden tried to make things right. By whose standards? And I think this is full circle of everything that we said so far tonight. We want to create a more perfect, the idea was to create a more perfect union. Okay. And, whether you said like somebody cheering when you kill a health insurance CEO, yay. Whoa, well, that'll show him. Or now you're going to pardon a group of people who led the storm on the Capitol. Yeah, I'm with you. If you're just some schmuck who was outside, you shouldn't. You're still within your constitutional right, because I've marched on the Supreme Court before to protest abortion.
Yeah.
Okay, that's well within my rights. But if I try to break in the door, you better cuff me and stuff me. Okay, and I don't think that when you set these questions as to whose morality now. My morality is affirmed whenever we say we're going to recognize two sexes, male and female. Okay. But the thing that even when I had you in class, one of the things that I've always taught is you have to recognize where one person's rights begins and another person's rights end. I can't go and impose a set of norms or values on you if they conflict with your rights or your beliefs. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I believe, if I believe in, hey, we're not gonna teach these far off leftist things, which the whole whatever that project was that was trying to bring woke liberalism into teaching of history, whatever, I can't remember the name of that project right now, but stuff like that, But I'm also not going to, it's like I'm not going to force Christianity onto a Muslim. Okay. I'm not going to force.
You're right.
And I don't think that, and this, I know I'm reiterating and repeating myself when I'm saying what I said earlier, but Trump's desire to go back to a golden age of people who really, I was around for whatever you want to call that, quote, golden age.
Mm-hmm.
You were a youngin' in that quote unquote golden age. You mentioned 9/11, and I mean, you were a youngin' in that, and
yeah,
if I'm considered golden age, okay, there you go, but it still wasn't that great. But the things that conservatives have to, and we have a largely conservative audience who listens to us, and we thank you for your support. But one of the things that you have to say to the conservative audience is there's still 47% of the population that aren't conservatives, that are liberal, or maybe not even liberal, maybe moderates, like myself, who say, I can see this, but I also see your way as well. We can't just totally sway to one side of the spectrum versus the other side of the spectrum. I mean, and that's what frightens me about going from Biden to Trump, or Trump to Biden, Biden back to Trump, and we're just seeing this massive swing either way. And, the coming weeks are obviously, thank you, President Trump and President Biden. Well, thank you, President Biden, for 4 years of providing us with endless material that we would never have been able to do without you. So thank you, President Biden, for that.
Yes.
Yes. All the endless video clips, endless video clips. I remember we did his last State of the Union last year, and we did that State of the Union live, and we were like, both of us were sitting there going, and so I think that we're, however long we do this for, we've got 4 more years of material that, barring a civil war, I don't know. But yeah. Yep. Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. To our friends, again, thank you all so much for being a part of this journey. And then as we continue to grow and as things continue to change, because I can assure you the next 4 years are going to be just as wild as the last 4. It feels like this is a roller coaster that doesn't like to slow down. So no, again, be a friend, tell a friend. You guys know where to find us week after week. And thank you all for being loyal listeners, and let's rock and roll and knock out these next 4 years of Donald J. Trump together.
Trump.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good week, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Check out our previous shows and clips on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.